What was weird about Antarctica?
There's nothing there.
Why do we have these weird structures that no one can really explain? And when you think about the fact that there's so much evidence that we were hit by comets, that we were hit by large objects. Like, I didn't know about that enormous crater that's in Antarctica.
Beneath Antarctica's frozen surface, Chinese scientists uncovered something that defies everything we thought we knew. Startling discoveries that are now sparking global debate. What began as routine research quickly turned into a scientific shockwave, capturing the attention of Joe Rogan and experts worldwide. From ancient anomalies to environmental warnings, these findings are rewriting the story of Earth's coldest frontier. What exactly is hidden beneath the ice, and why is no one talking about it? Get ready, because this story changes everything. China's quest for Antarctic secrets. Antarctica's icy grip has long captivated explorers, but few nations have embraced its challenges like China. In just a few short years, China went from having no presence in Antarctica to building research stations, decoding Earth's ancient climate secrets, and earning a powerful voice among the world's Antarctic elite. This transformation wasn't just rapid, it was suspiciously strategic. The speed, precision, and ambition behind China's Antarctic rise have raised eyebrows among skeptics and fueled speculation about what they're really after under all that ice. In 1980, China's Antarctic ambitions were ignited when Australia extended an invitation to Chinese scientists to visit the icy frontier. That moment planted a seed. Just 4 years later, in 1984, China launched its own expedition, an incredible leap that marked the beginning of a calculated scientific campaign that would soon put them on the same playing field as countries like the US and Russia. China wasted no time planting its footprint on the continent. In 1985, they constructed the Great Wall Station on King George Island, a brutal, wind-battered zone in the South Shetland Islands. This wasn't a symbolic gesture, it was a serious operational hub. From there, Chinese scientists began probing Antarctica's extreme weather systems, ocean currents, and polar biology. In just a few years, they added Zhongshan Station on the eastern side of the continent, giving them access to even deeper, more remote terrains. These stations became ground zero for China's icy ambitions, functioning as both research centers and geopolitical statements. Behind the scenes, China was also playing the diplomatic long game. They joined the Antarctic Treaty System, aligning themselves with international laws that restrict military activity and promote scientific cooperation. Just 2 years later, in 1985, China secured consultative party status, giving them voting rights and full participation in Antarctic policymaking. This status wasn't just handed out, it was earned, and it signaled to the world that China wasn't just visiting Antarctica. They were there to stay. The research from these early years was deceptively quiet, but groundbreaking in its scope. At Great Wall Station, Chinese teams studied atmospheric whistlers, electromagnetic waves that travel through the ionosphere, offering insights into space weather and its influence on global communication systems. At Zhongshan Station, they zeroed in on geomagnetism, ocean currents, and krill populations, key components of Earth's environmental balance. These weren't headline-grabbing discoveries, but they laid the scientific groundwork for bigger revelations down the line, and that's where the intrigue begins to brew. Joe Rogan, who's repeatedly questioned the secrecy around Antarctica on his podcast, taps directly into this vibe. He's asked, if it's just ice, why are so many countries so locked in? It's a valid question, and China's sudden and sustained push into Antarctica, building 2 major stations within 10 years, suggests a motivation far beyond textbook science. Was China onto something that others overlooked? Or worse, something they didn't want to share? China's tight-lipped nature only deepens the mystery. Unlike Western nations that often broadcast their findings, China's Antarctic operations have remained unusually quiet. Yet behind that silence, they've continued expanding, improving, and advancing. During the 1990s, they even teamed up with Japan's National Polar Research Institute for joint studies on biological systems, strategic collaborations that allowed them to absorb decades of expertise from countries that had been operating in Antarctica long before them. By the close of the 90s, China was no longer the curious new kid on the icy block. They had become a serious contender, equipped with infrastructure, experience, and data, and they were just getting started. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. China wasn't just setting up weather stations and studying penguins. They were digging, literally and figuratively, into the ancient ice. Beneath the frozen surface lie records of Earth's climate stretching back hundreds of thousands of years, and China was determined to unlock them. And if the pace of their efforts is any indication, they're not doing this just for science textbooks. So what exactly was China hoping to find under all that ice? And what did they actually discover in those deep, frigid layers of ancient Earth? We're about to find out. The remarkable penguin poop discovery. The real shocker in China's Antarctic exploration wasn't buried deep in ice. It was spread across rocks, frozen in place by time, and left behind by one of Earth's strangest creatures, penguins. It sounds absurd, but this moment marked one of the most groundbreaking scientific revelations in modern polar research. Not from radar scans, not from satellites, but from poop. Frozen layers of penguin droppings helped Chinese scientists crack a 3,000-year-old climate mystery wide open, and the world's top researchers paid attention. This twist in China's Antarctic journey came in the year 2000, when Chinese geochemist Sun Liguang published a landmark study in Nature, one of the most prestigious scientific journals on the planet. The paper, titled "A 3,000-Year Record of Penguin Populations," didn't just raise eyebrows, it raised alarm bells across the climate science world. Here's what happened. While most researchers drilled ice cores or collected rock samples, Sun and his team turned to something most scientists would have ignored: guano, a polite scientific word for penguin feces. Layered over centuries, this material had quietly accumulated near long-standing penguin colonies in Antarctica's coastal zones. Each layer captured chemical traces of the birds' diets, behaviors, and, more importantly, environmental conditions of their time. The breakthrough came through a technique developed by Sun called typomorphic element combination analysis. It's a mouthful, but the idea is revolutionary. By identifying and analyzing specific elements in the droppings, like phosphorus, copper, fluorine, and other markers, Sun could piece together a timeline of penguin colony sizes, and penguins, as it turns out, are surprisingly accurate indicators of climate health. Guess what? The results were stunning. The data showed clear population swings tied directly to long-term climate fluctuations. During warmer periods, krill and fish populations exploded, giving penguins more to eat and boosting their numbers. But during colder phases, especially ones that altered sea ice coverage and disrupted oceanic food chains, penguin populations plummeted. In other words, penguin guano wasn't just telling us about penguins, it was telling us about the planet. China had just unlocked a 3,000-year record of ecological change using nothing but patience, chemistry, and a little creativity. And it came at a critical time when global warming debates were reaching a boiling point. Climate models needed long-term historical data to validate predictions about where the planet was headed. Sun's study delivered exactly that, and from one of the world's least disturbed environments. This became a scientific win and a reputation boost for China. Their finding was published in Nature and hailed as an excellent achievement by the international community, and the study put China on the Antarctic map in a way that even flashy new research stations couldn't. It showed that China wasn't just investing in infrastructure, it was contributing original, high-impact science to the global understanding of climate systems. But there's something eerie about the discovery too. If guano from flightless birds can track the rise and fall of ecosystems over millennia, then what is it telling us about our current trajectory? That same method revealed population dips tied to ancient warming events. If penguins struggled to survive even during natural, slower temperature rises, what will happen with today's rapid, human-driven climate change? The answers aren't comforting. This is where the mystery of Antarctica gets uncomfortably real. It's not all alien speculation and secret bunkers. It's the overwhelming evidence that this frozen land is a living, breathing history book, warning us about the path we're on. The idea that something as ordinary and gross as penguin waste could carry a message for the future of our planet is a revelation that feels both humbling and terrifying. Joe Rogan would probably be all over this. On multiple episodes, he's mused about how nature hides its biggest secrets in plain sight. Picture him leaning into the mic and saying, "So wait, we've got 3,000 years of climate data written in bird crap? That's wild." It's the kind of strange truth that disrupts how we think about science, how the biggest stories aren't always told by the loudest voices, but by the quietest creatures leaving behind forgotten traces. This is only one piece of the puzzle. China's next discovery doesn't just involve penguins or poop, it reaches deep into the ice, where things start to get much, much weirder. Ice cores unlock Earth's past. Forget penguin poop and volcanic dust. This next breakthrough goes far deeper. In a place so remote and punishing it might as well be another planet, China drilled into the Antarctic ice and pulled out Earth's most detailed climate time capsule. These frozen cores didn't just record the past, they warned us about the future. Dome Argus, the highest and coldest point on the continent. The ice here isn't just ancient, it's pure, undisturbed, and loaded with secrets. And what Chinese researchers uncovered could change how we understand climate change, global warming, and even the fate of coastal cities around the world. Back in 2004, China kicked off its most ambitious climate research project to date. The goal? Drill deep into the Antarctic ice sheet at Dome Argus, aka Dome A, and retrieve cores that hadn't seen the light of day in thousands of years. Sounds simple enough, right? Not even close. Dome A is one of the most inhospitable places on Earth. We're talking temperatures that drop to negative 58 degrees Fahrenheit, howling winds, and an elevation so high it messes with your oxygen levels. Despite the odds, China's team pulled it off. Their first big win came with a 108-meter ice core, essentially a frozen tube layered like the rings of a tree, but with every inch telling a story about Earth's atmosphere at that time. By 2009, they pushed even deeper, extracting an 800-meter core. Then, in 2019, they made their most astonishing breakthrough, a continuous ice and subglacial core drilled through 200 meters of solid ice using gear they built themselves. Let that sink in for a second. Most countries rely on imported specialized equipment for this kind of deep ice drilling, but China doesn't. They engineered their own tech, designed from scratch to survive Antarctica's brutal conditions. This wasn't just about science, it was a bold flex. It said, we're not just participating in global research anymore, we're leading it. So, what's the big deal with these ice cores? Everything. Ice cores are the most reliable records of Earth's climate history. Each layer traps microscopic clues. Dust particles, trapped gases like carbon dioxide and methane, even fallout from ancient volcanoes. It's like slicing through a multi-thousand-year-old cake and finding receipts from every decade baked inside. China's cores gave scientists clear evidence of how Earth's atmosphere has evolved, confirming major swings in temperature and greenhouse gas levels long before industrial activity. But here's where it gets scary. Those shifts happened over thousands of years. Today, we're seeing similar changes unfold in mere decades. That pace is not just fast, it's alarming, and the ice confirms it. For example, these cores helped validate that past warm periods led to sudden sea level spikes, sometimes several meters in a relatively short geological time frame. In simpler terms, if the past is any indicator, our coastlines are in serious trouble. Cities like Miami, Lagos, and Jakarta could be staring down the barrel of rising tides faster than we thought. But that's not all. The 2019 subglacial samples, taken from beneath the ice sheet, offered a first-of-its-kind look at how Antarctica's ice physically interacts with the rock below. This interface is crucial. It determines how fast ice melts, how quickly glaciers slide into the sea, and how unstable entire regions might be if the ice starts shifting. And who's contributing this game-changing data to the world? China. That's why this discovery isn't just scientific, it's geopolitical. Kunlun isn't some temporary outpost. It's a state-of-the-art research base built for extreme climate studies, dug into one of the harshest spots on Earth, and it's operated year after year, collecting data no one else can. You could almost hear Joe Rogan saying it. Dude, they're living out there on what's basically space ice, building their own gear, drilling into the planet's past. That's some credible stuff, because these ice cores aren't just frozen relics, they're warnings. They're telling us that climate catastrophes have happened before, and we're racing toward another one, only this time with the accelerator pressed to the floor. Unlike ancient natural shifts, today's change is man-made, and unlike the past, we can't say we didn't see it coming. So the next time you hear about rising sea levels, superstorms, or melting glaciers, know that some of that knowledge came from a place no human could live in, and from the hands of scientists who faced near impossible odds to deliver it. But if that's what lies beneath the ice, what about what lies within Antarctica's hidden mountain ranges? Stick around. What China discovered next might just shake the ground beneath your feet. Geological marvels of the Gamburtsev Mountains. Buried beneath nearly 2 miles of solid ice lies a mountain range so massive, so ancient, and so untouched, it might as well be on another planet. But this isn't some make-believe story. It's what Chinese scientists uncovered in East Antarctica during one of the most ambitious geological surveys in polar history. While penguin colonies and ice cores might make headlines, this discovery dives into something far more primal: stone, pressure, and the hidden skeleton of the Earth itself. The Gamburtsev Mountains, often nicknamed the Ghost Mountains, are among the least understood mountain ranges on Earth, not because they're small, but because they're completely concealed under Antarctica's large ice sheet. Invisible to the naked eye and inaccessible by foot, these peaks stretch across East Antarctica in total darkness and silence. Until China stepped in with cutting-edge technology, much of what lay beneath the ice remained speculation. During a series of geological expeditions in the 2000s, Chinese scientists used ground-penetrating radar, seismic imaging, and satellite data to probe the icy depths. What they found rewrote the story of Antarctica's tectonic history. Beneath the frozen crust, they mapped long, narrow alpine valleys running between steep ridgelines, evidence of ancient geological activity that had been preserved like a fossil beneath the ice. These valleys weren't just ordinary dips in the terrain. They told a story of colossal tectonic forces that once stretched, faulted, and sculpted the continent's crust. The Gamburtsev Mountains are thought to have formed over 1 billion years ago and were later rejuvenated around 250 million years ago during the collision of continental plates. The valleys, what geologists call longitudinal valleys, are relics of this violent past. Their presence confirms that these buried mountains weren't just static relics, they were shaped by intense and repeated geological upheaval. But here's where it gets really interesting, and a little unnerving. The mountains may be ancient, but their influence on today's world is anything but dead. As Antarctica warms and ice begins to melt and shift, the structure of the land underneath, especially in areas like the Gamburtsevs, could influence how quickly that melt accelerates. If the bedrock is riddled with old faults and weak zones, then parts of the ice sheet could collapse faster than models currently predict. What's buried beneath might actually speed up what's happening on top. Now think about that for a second. A mountain range hidden for millions of years could be a key player in Earth's climate future. And it took a quiet, methodical Chinese expedition to pull that truth from the ice. This wasn't the type of work that makes for flashy headlines. Unlike ice core drilling or penguin tracking, geological mapping is a slow, deliberate science, one that requires interpreting faint seismic signals and matching them with radar shadows. But the payoff? Monumental. These surveys contributed to global tectonic models and informed sea level rise projections used in climate policy discussions worldwide. While other countries focused on the ice and atmosphere, China went deeper, literally, to explore what was holding it all up. For Joe Rogan and his audience, this is the kind of mind-blowing story that blends ancient Earth history with modern geopolitical ambition. You're talking about mountains no one's ever seen, influencing events that could affect coastal cities across the globe. It's the kind of knowledge that changes how we think about stability, both planetary and political. As Rogan might put it, they found an entire mountain range under Antarctica, and it might be part of what decides how fast the oceans rise. That's not just wild, that's straight-up world-shifting. So, as you watch China's quiet, calculated moves across the continent, keep in mind that some of their most important discoveries aren't happening on the surface at all. They're happening deep beneath the ice, where stone records stories that no satellite can see and no drone can reach. From mountains to mysteries, Joe Rogan's got plenty to say about Antarctica. Let's step into the JRE studio. Joe Rogan's Antarctic fascination. Rogan isn't obsessed with the frozen continent, but he's undeniably fascinated, returning to it across a handful of episodes with guests who bring its mysteries to life. When it comes to exploring the edges of human understanding, few platforms do it better than the Joe Rogan Experience. Antarctica, with its icy enigmas and buried secrets, sits right at the intersection of mystery and science, a place tailor-made for Rogan's brand of high-stakes speculation and off-the-wall theorizing. Let's explore how Rogan's conversations about Antarctica don't just entertain, they mirror the themes of China's bold discoveries, the allure of the unknown, and the weird sense that something down there just doesn't add up. Across several episodes, Joe Rogan has poked, prodded, and obsessed over the White Continent, not out of pure curiosity, but because Antarctica is where hard science meets ancient legend. And that tension is Rogan's sweet spot. Whether it's a Navy SEAL talking about death-defying dangers, or a fringe historian theorizing about pre-Ice Age civilizations, the frozen South becomes more than just a mass of ice. It becomes a character in the broader story of human ignorance, survival, and perhaps even cover-up. One of Rogan's most gripping Antarctic moments came in episode 1429 with Colin O'Brady, the man who crossed the entire continent alone and unassisted. For 54 days, O'Brady dragged a 400-pound sled across 932 miles of soul-crushing ice. Rogan was captivated, not just by the physical endurance, but by the psychological weight of such a journey. You're literally on the edge of the world, man. And the silence? That would drive me nuts, he said. O'Brady described moments where the ice seemed to breathe, where he felt like something was watching him. This mysterious undertone syncs up eerily well with what Chinese researchers endure at places like Dome A, where sub-zero science becomes a battle against isolation and frostbite. The connection? Antarctica has a way of testing people and revealing things. Fast forward to episode 1996, featuring Andy Stumpf, a former Navy SEAL with first-hand experience in extreme environments. Stumpf didn't mince words. He described crevasses that could swallow tanks, UV rays intensified by the ozone hole, and logistics so brutal that a mistake out there doesn't mean injury, it means you vanish. Rogan's reaction? Total fascination. It's like the Earth doesn't want us there, he mused. That sentiment overlaps with the Chinese scientific expeditions that we've been talking about. When Chinese teams brave deadly terrain to extract climate data, they're not just contributing to science, they're surviving in a place that seems actively hostile to human presence. Then came episode 2136, where Rogan hosted Graham Hancock and Flint Dibble. Hancock, known for his controversial views on lost civilizations, steered the conversation toward ancient Antarctic maps, particularly the Peary Race map. Supposedly drawn in the 1500s, it appears to depict the Antarctic coast without its ice cover. Rogan wasn't convinced, but he leaned in. So people might have known about this place before it was frozen? That same question hangs over China's geological finds, like the valleys of the Gamburtsev Mountains, landforms that suggest Antarctica's icy tomb hides a rich prehistory. While mainstream scientists dismiss Hancock's wilder claims, the curiosity he stirs mirrors the intrigue behind China's quiet, calculated explorations. In another episode, Rogan dove into Operation High Jump with comedian and conspiracy enthusiast Sam Tripoli. The 1946 U.S. military mission to Antarctica, staffed by nearly 5,000 men and a fleet of ships, was officially a scientific and military exercise. But to Tripoli, it was something far more ominous. Tales of UFOs, secret Nazi bases, and missing personnel flowed freely. Rogan pushed back, but not too hard. "It's a wild story, but why send that many people just to test equipment?" he asked. The question stuck. For Rogan, when a government shows that much interest in a place no one lives, alarm bells ring. It's a perspective that adds another layer to China's presence on the continent. Why the sudden push for deep research, remote outposts, and advanced tech in one of the world's most desolate zones? What ties all these episodes together is Rogan's core instinct to question everything. Antarctica, sealed off by the 1959 treaty and inaccessible to most of the planet, is like a giant locked door. And locked doors? Rogan wants to know what's behind them. China's studies, whether it's the microbial findings, the penguin poop data, or the tectonic stories buried in ancient rock, feed that very narrative. That's why China's work matters, not just to science, but to the larger conversation about what lies beneath the surface of our world. Rogan's got us questioning everything, but what do China's discoveries mean for the world today? Let's wrap this up. Global impact: China's Antarctic legacy. What if the most terrifying part of this story isn't buried alien tech or secret military missions, but data? Cold, hard, scientific data. In this final stretch, we're not diving into conspiracies or cryptic ancient maps. We're unpacking the very real, world-changing discoveries made by Chinese scientists in Antarctica. And here's the kicker. The most unsettling revelations might not be what governments are hiding, but what nature itself is warning us about. China's deep involvement in Antarctic research has gone far beyond symbolic flags and exploration missions. It has redefined how the world approaches climate science and polar research. From 3,000-year-old penguin droppings to miles-deep ice cores and buried mountain ranges, their findings haven't just filled textbooks, they've shaken global climate models and altered international environmental strategies. Let's start with the penguin population records, because yes, penguins are more than just cute waddlers in tuxedos. The study, led by Chinese scientist Sun Liguang, as we said earlier, tracked penguin colony changes over thousands of years using preserved droppings as biological timestamps. These shifts were found to align with sea ice movement and ocean temperatures, providing direct proof that warming seas were reshaping ecosystems long before we had satellites to monitor them. This wasn't just a strange zoological curiosity, it was a biological alarm bell ringing across the Southern Ocean. Through this research, China gave the world a biological model for tracking climate-induced ecosystem shifts. It's not an exaggeration to say that penguin poop became a crucial climate warning system. Then came the real spine chiller, the ice cores from Dome A. China drilled these in 2004, 2009, and 2019, extracting frozen cylinders that served as climate time capsules. Inside were trapped air bubbles from hundreds of thousands of years ago, literal samples of Earth's prehistoric atmosphere. The data revealed abrupt climate swings, CO2 spikes, and ocean changes similar to today's trends. One set of subglacial cores even showed how melting ice interacts with the ground beneath it, data that's crucial for understanding what happens if massive ice sheets like those in West Antarctica collapse. We're not talking theoretical science fiction here, we're talking meter-level sea rise, entire coastlines under threat. That's not just an academic concern, that's global survival at stake. And then there's the hidden skeleton of the continent, the Gamburtsev Mountains. Buried beneath miles of ice, this ghost mountain range was mapped out using seismic and radar tech. Why does that matter? Because those mountains control how ice moves across the continent. If the underlying rock shifts or softens due to warming, glaciers could slide faster, accelerating sea level rise. It's like discovering that your basement is cracking while your house is already flooding. Understanding this geological framework is vital for every country planning to defend its coasts. To top it all off, China hasn't just made a few big discoveries and called it a day. Through the 2012 Ka-era initiative, they set long-term goals to monitor ice sheet behavior, ocean circulation, and polar ecosystems. Their newly built inexpressible island station near the Ross Sea is a modern scientific fortress, armed with tools for satellite monitoring, biological sampling, and atmospheric tracking. Unlike shady cover-ups, China's work is out in the open, published in major scientific journals, shared with international partners, and made available for global climate assessments. This is where myth and reality split paths. While Joe Rogan and others have questioned what's really going on in Antarctica, the truth is that the scariest stuff is already in plain sight and backed by science. So, what does this all mean for the rest of us? It means the timeline for climate change isn't measured in decades. It's measured in ice melt rates, penguin migration patterns, and tectonic underbellies. China's Antarctic legacy isn't about flags or influence. It's about giving humanity the data it needs to adapt, defend, and maybe, just maybe, avoid the worst-case scenarios. Whether you're a skeptic, a scientist, or just someone watching from the sidelines, this part of the story hits differently. Because this isn't about what's hidden beneath the ice, it's about what's already been uncovered and how fast we act on it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.